Hi, everybody. Mike White here. Welcome to this week's blog post. Well, strange as it may seem, here we go again with another mixed bag of data. We got the CPI report yesterday, and while a lot of things that were in that report in general met expectations and shouldn't have been alarming, there were a few different categories where some of the numbers were a little disturbing to the markets. And as it continues to be, inflation is still stubborn, and that has really impacted the markets. They keep looking for a sign, and some of the numbers show some improvement on the inflation front, and then other numbers jump up unexpectedly, and we don't seem to be making the progress that a lot of people had hoped for. And while those things remain stubborn, and while the markets are still volatile over that, um, I personally think that the markets are still feeling like the Fed's going to cut 25 basis points next week on the Fed funds rate. And, despite recent events, I also think, and again, this is just a personal opinion, I think the markets are still a little stunned at the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, and the reaction, believe it or not, of the almost cult-like following of those who are now supporting the alleged assassin. And I think people take pause to figure out what that all means. But again, the markets are not where we'd like them to be. And it's a little jittery. And until we get past further data today, we're going to get the PPI numbers. We're going to get both initial and continuing jobless claims. And I think we're also going to see some impact depending upon the acceptance of the 30-year Treasury bonds that are going off this afternoon. Now, all of these things, any of them, all of them, some individually, depending upon how things work out, could be a factor in the markets. And depending upon how it factors in the markets, or the market's interpretation of how it's going to impact potentially the Fed decision next week. And, to me, my belief is still that the Fed is going to follow through with what they projected back before they started cutting, that it would be a total of 100 basis points by the end of the year. We saw a cut of 50, we saw a cut of 25, and I think there would have to be something significant take place in the markets, which is entirely possible. But again, I think the next 25 basis points next week is already well built into the mix. So I also think it's been very interesting to see and look at the housing market since Thanksgiving. And again, my view is only through the people that I work with, what they're seeing and what people they know are seeing. And it's very interesting to look at that some areas are seeing solid activity, others seem to be more subdued in the activity that's taken place. And my belief is, amongst those people who are working and calling and connecting with their buyers, with their database, with their referral partners, with their people, they're still seeing fairly good activity levels. And I think for those people who have already pretty much phoned it in and said that, they were going to enjoy the parties and the holidays, it's probably not as active. And some of that may or may not be a coincidence, but it is what it is. And for me, like I've always said, if you're going to work, work, and if you're not going to work, then don't work. But don't fake it, because faking working and faking taking off don't do you any good. So, and for those of you who still have files to close this year, I just put this out there like I do every year as we get to this time, especially because of the way the holidays fall. You really need to make sure that those files that are closing this year are really in order, that anything that you're going to need, that you have and that you're going to have in your possession, you make sure that the schedules are tight, especially on things like, homeowners insurance and verifications of employment, things like that. you got to make sure you're going to be able to have in your hand the things that you're going to need going forward. Because if they're scheduled to close, Christmas week or New Year's week, the people in the office, the people who are going to have to, confirm information or what have you, may not be there. And that's, true with the staff of, title companies and whatever have you, making sure that, these things are going to get scheduled, that, it's all done, because it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to really make adjustments on the fly at the last minute. And so don't take that risk. Make sure that you've dotted every I and crossed every T and gotten everything where it needs to be. And on a final note, you know, for those of you who are still connecting with your pre-approved borrowers, your referral partners, and your coworkers, to make certain of their schedules, and to be able to share opportunities, because again, there are a lot of people who are taking off, but there's a lot of people who are working right through the end of the year. And for those buyers out there who still want to see property in December, for those homeowners who are listed that want to show their property in December, you've probably got a combination of motivated buyers and motivated sellers. And when you have a motivated buyer and a motivated seller and you put them both together, the chances are pretty good you're going to end up with a transaction. And it would be nice to fill that pipeline beginning in January with a bunch of deals for people who are motivated to make them happen. As always, if you have questions or comments, it's Mike at imtcoaching.com. Have yourselves a great week. Pay attention to the numbers coming out today, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Take care.